Welcome to our online hybrid JD overview, program overview. As you're coming in, if you have a second, if you don't mind typing in the state that you're from in the chat, we always love to see where everyone's from. Wow. California, Florida, Connecticut, Canada, Texas, Georgia. Pennsylvania, that's where I'm from. Connecticut. You think, Ellen, that's most of everybody? Okay, great. I'll get started. So today's info session is going to be an overview of the online hybrid JD program. Today you're going to be hearing from our Dean of the Law School, Dean Beth McCormick. Beth, if you wave your hand. And you're also going to be hearing from our Director of the Online Hybrid JD program, Roger Pale. And then you're also going to be meeting 3 of our current online hybrid JD students, Lamar Lewis Sutton. Lamar, if you raise your hand. Chelsea Spitzer. Lamar and Chelsea are both 1L students. Chelsea's also an SBA student rep. And our third panelist, a student panelist, is Richard Byrne, who's a 2L student. So initially in this event, we're going to give you an overview about the hybrid JD program, and then about halfway through, we're going to open it up for you all to be able to ask any questions that you like. You're welcome to raise your virtual hand at that time and unmute yourself and ask your question orally, or if you're more comfortable, you're welcome to type your question in the chat, and then we'll make sure to answer it there as well. Beth, if you want to start us off, that would be great.
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Beth McCormick. I'm the Dean of the Law School, and I'm logging in today from Warren, Vermont, which is about 45 minutes or so north of our campus in South Royalton, Vermont. My claim to fame, though, for tonight is not being the Dean of the Law School, but I'm also the Civil Procedure Professor for the online hybrid JD. So if you join us next year, about half of you will be in my Civil Procedure class, and I'm so honored to have Chelsea, Lamar, and Richard with me tonight. They were all in my Civil Procedure class, and so I feel really great about you hearing from them about their experiences in the program. I am immensely proud of our online hybrid JD program. First of all, it's an ABA accredited online program. So just like any of our other graduates, our students are qualified to take the bar in any jurisdiction, although there are some complications with New York. So if you're interested in New York as a jurisdiction to take the bar, that's something that you should talk with us about. New York has some different rules than New York's always a little bit different. So they have some different rules than the other states about it that I would want to share with you. I was one of the people that designed the program and sought ABA approval for it about 3 years ago. And that's one of the reasons I'm so proud of it and that I'm so invested in it. I want to give you just the briefest of overviews about the program and maybe some ways that it's different from some of the other programs out there. But it's going to be brief, so I'm happy to chat with others about it. And I also want to invite any of you to attend my Civil Procedure class if you want to see what an actual class is like. We tend to have prospective students in our class. On most weeks, we meet Tuesdays from 6 to 9:40 or 9:20, but you don't have to stay the whole time if you don't want to. Our program, one of the unique features of it is that our classes are offered synchronously. All those required bar classes, those typical first-year classes, although you'll take them spread out a little bit, are offered synchronously, which means that it's just like this. We're on teams together, and I'm teaching the class and you have your camera on and you're there and I call on you just like I do in my regular classroom. And so you get a chance to ask questions right in the moment and to hear other students' questions and to get answers right in the moment. And you have the full Socratic experience that residential students have as well. So those required bar classes for the most part are all synchronous, and then the rest of your credits you can take through asynchronous classes, as well as you can participate in an externship to earn experiential credit, which all ABA accredited schools require as well. So the asynchronous classes means that you take a class and you have work to do probably almost every day, but there's no one time that you have to be online together. So you can do the work 2 in the morning if you want. You can do the work during the day. It doesn't matter as long as you get the work done. And so those classes may offer more flexibility. It's a part-time program. You'll go fall, spring, summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring, summer for fall for 10 semesters. So it's about 3.5 calendar years. And you would finish in December of your, right in the middle of your 4th year. So 3.5 years to get your degree. One of my favorite things about the program is that you'll find at Vermont Law and Graduate School a ton of high-level support for the program. So as you know, I'm the Dean of the Law School. I teach in the program. Our president of Vermont Law and Graduate School, Rod Smola, he's a famous First Amendment scholar. Check him out on Wikipedia. He teaches constitutional law in the program. Our vice dean for students teaches in the program. Our vice dean for faculty teaches in the program. And so there's a ton of high-level support for the program that I hope that you feel. And I think that is something that distinguishes us from some of the other schools out there. Students will come to Vermont 3 times in the 3.5 years. It's about once a year, but the first one's just after you've been in class for just a couple of weeks. You'll come to Vermont for 4 days, and then the second one won't be until not the next June, but the following June, and then there'll be one more in November of your final year. And during these 4-day residencies, it's a chance for us all to hang out and collaborate in person. And then we have a mix of classes and other events planned for you. Sometimes they're networking events, sometimes they're classes. Your 3rd residency will involve an oral argument as part of your appellate advocacy requirement. And the second reason that I'm so proud of this program is of the community that I think we're able to develop. And I know sometimes people say, well, how can it be the same in an online program as in a residential program? And I am here to tell you that in so many ways, I know my online students better than my residential students. And I'm not exactly sure of the reason. I think part of it is because we're all in each other's homes at night. You're in my home tonight. We meet each other's spouses and children and dogs and cats and pets and all sorts of pets, I suppose. And so there's an intimacy that comes from that. Classes are generally 6 to 6:30 to around 8:30 or 9, depending on the number of credits for the class. And you have class about 3 times a week in that first year or so. So I think that's part of why we develop such a good and close community. The average age in our online program is a little bit older. It's about 36 versus 26 in our residential community. And so I think there's more opportunities for collaboration, for networking in this group than I sometimes find with my residential full-time students. I think the residencies also contribute to that community feel. So in the residencies, we spend 4 days together in a hotel essentially, and it gives me a chance to get to know students, and you get to know each other and the faculty in a different way. We have happy hours. I may have participated in karaoke once or twice with our online students during the residency. So things that I don't typically do with my residential students that comes easy with that 4-day residency that we have 3 times in a year. You're also full members of our community. So often students come to campus when they're in the area. I have one of my TAs and former students coming to campus on Monday to celebrate Veterans Day with us. Whenever I'm traveling, I try to meet up with whatever residential student or whatever online students happen to live in that area. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. We had an alumni event and we invited all the online students to come as well. So those that didn't have class that night were able to come and interact with our alumni. So you really become a full member of our community. It's not exactly the same, right? You can't do everything the residential students do just by nature, but we try to give you as many opportunities as you can that the residential students have, like participating on the Student Bar Association, like moot court, like participating in law review and things like that. The third reason that I love our program is because there's an opportunity to specialize in some of the areas for which Vermont Law and Graduate School is best known, but there's also an opportunity to participate in our general practice track. So many students are attracted to us for our environmental law and policy offerings. And so you could specialize in that. You could specialize even more specifically by focusing on animal law and policy or energy regulation and law or food and agriculture law. Or restorative justice, which is another one of our non-environmental specialties. But for many, you're just seeking to get a well-rounded legal education without specializing in any particular field. And you can do that too. We have a general practice program that gives you sort of those core classes that any lawyer needs to know without having to specialize in one of our environmental areas. So those are just three of the reasons that I'm proud of the program and that I love the program. I also want to share with you that Vermont Law and Graduate School has been a leader in online education for well over a decade. We were one of the first schools to offer fully online master's degree programs. This is well before the pandemic. And we have all of our infrastructure in-house. So we have our own instructional designers and tech, all is in-house. We don't contract with a third party as many other schools do. And I think that shows both our commitment to online legal education and the fact that we've been longtime leaders in this area. So I'm going to stop talking there, and I'm going to turn things over to our director of the online hybrid JD program, Roger Powell, but I'll be around to answer questions as needed, and I hope I get the chance to see you in class or meet you online or in person.
Thank you so much, Dean McCormick. And I have to say, I share everything that Dean McCormick has shared. One of the things that I feel so passionately about with respect to the OHJD program, the online hybrid JD program, is that I think it's a program that incorporates the best of both worlds. And let me explain. I mean that in a couple different ways. As you are considering your different options as far as your JD programs go, as Dean McCormick described, we have these three residencies across a 3 year, 4 or 5 month period. And I think that you'll find that there are programs out there that are online, JD programs that have more residencies and fewer residencies. But I think that we have a wonderful balance there. So it's a well-balanced program in that respect. And I would also say it's well-balanced in terms of the balance between online synchronous and asynchronous learning, right? I one of the pieces of advice that I would share with prospective students is that you have to think a lot about how you balance your work / professional life with your personal and family lives. It's a real challenge, I think, for a lot of students who are online learners. And I think what Vermont Law and Graduate School achieves with this balance between synchronous and asynchronous classes is that you kind of have the best of both worlds again. But a little bit about myself. I teach contracts and business associations, and so many of you, if you decide to come to Vermont Law and Graduate School, may have me as a faculty member for one or both of those classes. I know Richard, who's here, for example, has had me for both of those classes, contracts and business associations. And I think that one of the most important and valuable pieces that you can get from this session is actually from our student panelists, students who are in the program. So I'm going to ask each of the student panelists an introductory question. I think I'll go in alphabetical order by first name. It never seems entirely fair to me because the first letter of my first name starts with R, the last letter P, but I'll run with that, and I'll start with Richard Byrne. Uh, Richard, you're fortunate enough to have a last name that starts with the letter B there, and I'll ask you, can you share a little bit about yourself, such as why you came to VLGS and what your experience here has been so far?
Yeah, thank you, Professor. So I came to VLGS as a slightly older than average first year law student. I had sold a business after 20 some years and outside of in a variety of places. And I have a family, and and I wanted to go to law school, and I have a family, and the prospect of picking up and moving my entire family to campus somewhere just wasn't an option. Uh, and so VLGS has a schedule that works for someone who has a family, who has obligations outside of school, and the schedule just works. On top of that, I was drawn to the idea of specializing in energy law. I live in Maine, and I'm a part-time ski instructor on the weekends. It's kind of a hobby to get free passes for my kids. And I have an interest in the way the land is used and the way the uh, energy law is created. And so that was another factor in the program as well. And so far, it's going great. I had to learn how to learn again, and there's some great support for people who have to kind of go back and learn how to take it. I haven't taken a test since Clinton was in office, so I had to go back and do, and there's some great support for that. So that's been great, and the flexibility overall has been wonderful as well. I'm on the energy track, but I've also taken a couple of, well, now I've taken three additional classes, uh, which is why I've had Professor Powell twice already. And so it's been great. Did I ramble too much, Professor?
No, you did not. That was so wonderful. Thank you so much, Richard. I really appreciate it. And well, let me ask you the same. Let me ask the same question now to you, Lamar. What brought you to VLGS, and what has your experience been like here so far?
Thank you, Professor Powell. Lamar Lewis Sutton. I'm a CPA and also a regional supervisor with the Department of Justice, and I travel a lot. So traditional classes wouldn't work for me. I had an opportunity to meet at an informational session the Dean of Admissions, Katie Merrill. And for me, Vermont is the people. Once I met Katie Merrill, I mean, she was very nice, very informative. She answered all of my questions. And then she referred me to Professor Powell, and he answered all of my detailed questions about the program. So for me, the people, the flexibility, and then I also had an opportunity to meet Dean McCormick, and she invited me to one of her classes, and the energy in that class, it felt right. So the people, the students that I had an opportunity to see how they interacted with the other students, it just felt great. And it's one of those that with my job, I travel a lot. So in law school, missing class, you can only miss a certain amount of classes. And when you work full time, it's hard to tell your professors, you know what? I can't be in class because I'm traveling, and I travel a lot. So I already knew it wouldn't work just sitting in class. So the flexibility and also the people is what really brought me to Vermont. And now being a 1L student, just the resources. I'll give you a couple of examples. Like before we started, the summer before we started, Vermont offered a program that was called Lawyering Fundamentals. And not only am I a 1L, but I'm also first generation law student in my family. So I had no knowledge of the law as far as going to law school. So briefing a case, similar to Richard, studying, it's been a while since I've been in school. So studying the way lawyers write, the essays are different. So taking that course, lawyering fundamentals, was really helpful. And also they have another resource called Core Grammar for Lawyers. So the tools that Vermont offers is just very helpful. Other law schools probably do the same thing, but once again, the people that I've had an opportunity to meet, and even though we take classes online, just the connections that you make. And I'll give you a good example. One of the students in my class, we met during the residency. I met her and her husband. We had coffee, we hit it off, and she's in Florida and I'm from Miami. I live in Las Vegas, but I'm from Miami. And I go back and forth to Miami every now and then. And a couple of weeks ago, I was in Miami and I reached out to her and we had a full day study session. This was Christina Trummel. We had a full day study session. I drove to her house, lunch, dinner, and we just studied and we had a good time. So even though we go to school online, the connections are invaluable. So I love it.
Thank you so much, Lamar, for that terrific introduction and for sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate it. And well, let me ask Chelsea the same question. What brought you to BLGS, and what has your experience been like here so far?
Thank you, Professor. So I'm Chelsea. I am from Tennessee. I live in a very small town. I'm a single mother. I'm divorced. I have 2 children. I have a lot on my plate. I have a full-time job. I work in criminal court. I'm in the legal field already. And for me, quitting my job to attend a traditional law school is not an option. And the people at Vermont Law School were amazing. I talked to Shirley first and she was so incredible. She talked about the program and answered all of my questions. I think the first conversation I had with Shirley was like 30 to 45 minutes. She was so patient. And other law schools I talked to were not so patient. They just wanted to, answer my questions as quick as possible. And it's just the vibe in the community is amazing at Vermont. And at residency, I met people that I'm in class with. I made friends with so many people, was able to talk with the professors one-on-one, and the vibe and the environment in the community is just so different from what other people describe as law school was for them. I work with lawyers and they don't have good I guess, reviews from their law school days. And mine has been great. I love law school so much. The professors are awesome. We do study groups with my classmates on teams, and we're able to talk. We're able to reach out to our professors if we have questions or issues or anything like that. And it's just a completely different vibe and community than any other law school that I talked with prior to Vermont. It's amazing.
Chelsea, thank you so much for your excellent introduction and for sharing your thoughts as well. I really appreciate it as well. And well, uh, thank you so much to all of our student panelists. And now is the point in time when we'll open it up to questions from the audience, so to speak. Always one of my favorite times of these sessions because now we get to hear from you, and you can ask any questions that you would like in the chat area of our student panelists or of any of the administration staff and faculty that are here today. So let me ask you, Shirley, do you want students to raise their hands or yeah?
Yeah, so you can either raise your virtual hand and unmute yourself and ask your question orally, or type it in the chat. And we can start with a few of the questions that have been. Oh, we've got a hand up there actually. Brianna, we're happy to take your question, and then we'll move it to some of the questions that are in the chat.
Hi, thank you for having me here. I'm truly enjoying this discussion. I'm sorry, I thought I was unmuted. So, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, my name is Brianna. I'm happy to be a part of this panel. I'm truly enjoying this session, first off. I want to know, because this is my first time doing like some type of online school with, especially for law school, and I already know how hard law school is. So I wanted to know, what is the support like for online students when they are struggling with any type of areas that they're struggling in. I know my worst class was civil procedure. So so I was shocked because I thought I was doing good, but I ended up with a D somehow. So I wanted to know, how do you guys help students that are struggling online?
I'm happy to start that one, and then maybe I can pass it on to one of the students to tell you about their own experience. But we have an academic success program here, and that is fully available to our online students as well. So as part of that program, you can think of the academic success mentors as academic coaches, and they're available to meet with you, and they can work around the typical schedule of an online hybrid JD student, meet at night or on the weekends to go over anything. They can do things like review notes, review outlines, review practice tests, etc. In addition to that, I think you'll find that you'll get a lot of support from your professor and from the TAs that your class might have. So for example, Richard's one of my TAs in civil procedure this year. He routinely meets with my students or hosts study sessions with them. I have 2 other TAs as well, so that everyone's kind of schedules are covered. And then I personally host 2 sessions of office hours a week where I go through practice problems with students and record those sessions for students that cannot participate. So there's lots of opportunities for help from academic success, from me, your professor, and from your TAs, in addition to a partnership that we have with Barbary that provides videos, outlines, and practice questions on all of the subjects that you'll be taking that are on the bar exam. So with that, I'll open it to the students to maybe talk about their own experiences. I know many of them are in study groups themselves with other students, and I know everyone sort of uses the TAs a lot too, but.
I'll weigh in and say that one of the things that's been helpful for me when I've needed help has been that every professor has been very accessible either for office hours or in fact on Tuesday I talked to one of my professors on the phone who called me, and he called me from his Jeep and talked me through a problem I was working on in his class in my professional responsibility course. Professor Sala just picked up the phone and called me. He said, I can handle this a lot more efficiently over the phone than I can through email. And so he just called me. So there's things like that that are very helpful. And Lamar mentioned study groups and making a connection in the residency. I made a connection with a handful of people in my first residency period. And in fact, we're going to be meeting in about an hour from now to talk about some issues around our torts class, and we have a Teams group that we chat in all the time, and so that's also really helpful.
And I would echo that as well, because we have office hours with the professors is always optional. We have office hours with the TAs, and then on Saturdays for Civ Pro, there's also a study group that's optional, but is always good to attend. But one thing is, Dean McCormick, I may be butchering the way I'm going to say this, but Dean McCormick, every now and then she says this, and she said it a lot in the beginning. When it comes down to learning, multiple meaningful interaction with the material is always helpful. There's no substitute for putting in the time, putting in the work. You know, for each one of my classes, I have set times every week to study and review. And then also, you know, life is all about balancing. I mentioned I work a lot, I travel a lot, but I also have a family. So 2 days a week, I take time to spend with my family. They want more, but I give them what I can. So they get Friday night and they also get Sunday evening, and that's pretty much it. So typically it's a fight, but I just tell them, you know your time, stay in your place and leave me alone. So, but the multiple meaningful interaction with the material, that's how you do better. I mean, in the beginning is a lot, but after a while, it starts to sink in. Somewhere along the line, it starts to click.
Yeah, and I just want to add to both what Richard and Lamar said. And I'm in Dean McCormick's Civ Pro class right now. Lamar and I have, I think, all 3 of our classes together this semester. And our professors are very engaging. We meet on class just like we're meeting right now. So our cameras are on. When Dean McCormick is in class with Civ Pro, she's talking to us in her class just like she's talking to you guys right now. And so it's very engaging, and it's more engaging than I think you realize. I was intimidated by the online format at first. And then after we've spent some time in it, I really love it. And I think it is a great fit for me. And I like that I can attend class in my own home, and I have all of my material here, and I'm able to do it in a way that I feel like is really meaningful for me. But in addition, the professors, they want you to succeed. And I think that's a different kind of attitude with Vermont than other law schools too, is that the professors, they want you to succeed at Vermont. And they have a great way of delivering the information. It's very engaging. We're all included in the discussions. It's very interactive. And if you don't understand something, then they're very welcoming to reach out to them, either by email, set up an appointment with them, attend their office hours. So there's so many opportunities if you are lost on something, to have help and support, and just a huge community around you that I feel like is very unique with Vermont.
Just to
Thank
piggyback
you.
on what Chelsea said, sorry. In terms of other support, if you're like me and you are, well, if you're here, you're probably making a career change. And so there's a transition in how to write your resume and revamp your resume. And there's been a lot of support for that. That was very helpful for me as I was looking for summer associate positions.
Thank you. I
Wonderful.
was very concerned to hear about that because I know I recently was laid off from my job, and people are telling me you can't do an online JD because you don't have a job. And I'm like, oh God. So I'm just looking for a career change. And I was in law school before, and now I'm ready to come back 100%.
Brianna, thank you so much for that wonderful question, and thank you so much to Dean McCormick and our panelists for the terrific responses. I see, and thank you so much, Richard and Shirley, too, for fielding so many questions in the chat area. I see a few hands up, and I think Brittany, Jill, then Dr. Teresa Mason Ford. Brittany, go for it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just curious about the summer classes. I know Lamar said it's important to make, like to interact with the material enough. And I worked 2 jobs this summer. Do you feel like I can have that meaningful interaction, or is that difficult to do? I just wanted to work a job this summer. And that's my
Yeah,
question.
do any of our student panelists want to weigh in about your summer experience? I think, well, if I may ask, Richard, if you don't mind, because you are, I think, the only panelist here who has experienced a summer so far, right?
Yeah, I think I'm the only one who's done the summer term. And I actually took an extra 4 credits during the summer. And part of that's my own situation, my own home situation is that as I mentioned, I sold a business before going to law school. And so my only work is some sporadic part-time consulting work as part of an ongoing agreement. So I have a little more flexibility than most people. That said, I would not recommend taking an extra 4 credits in your summer if you are working a job. Uh, Most of my classmates took only 2 classes during the summer, and from what I gathered, none of them seemed overwhelmed by doing that. Now, if you tried to take an extra class during the summer and worked, I don't think you would enjoy your life that much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Richard, and thank you so much, Brittany and Jill. Go for it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, wait, is that me or is there another Jill?
Yes, yes, it is.
Okay.
Joe Rapogo. Go for
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Thanks so much for doing this. Sorry for not putting my camera on. I'm driving my kid to a dentist appointment because that's my life. I wondered if the student panelists could talk about how many hours you dedicate to studying outside of class time. I work full time right now. I would cut down those hours if I went to law school, but I'm just, trying to figure out how realistic this is.
Yeah, does anyone want to weigh in? Maybe Lamar, you unmuted your microphone. Go for it.
Well, I can tell you for me, I haven't done the math to tell you how many hours. I think it's more so on what what's due. And let's just say I go to class Monday, Tuesday, not Wednesday, and Thursday. So basically, every Thursday evening after class, I sit down and I look at the syllabus and I see what's due for the next week. And that's how I base my schedule as far as what needs to be done. At the end of the day, what I don't want is, when you go to class, in order to make the learning experience good, you have to do the work before you go to class. Like I never want to be that person if Dean McCormick, because Dean McCormick is one of the classes that's like the traditional law school, meaning that you get cold called. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but you don't want to be not prepared. So it's one of those that, everybody's situation is different. Some people read faster than others. I read slower. I read slower, but I retain a lot of information. So I have to build in extra time for that. So basically, I already mentioned Friday night and also Sunday evening. I don't study. I spend time with my family and I study during lunchtime. I study after class, and on the weekend is when I study even more. And anytime I'm feeling burnt out, then I just don't study. I take a break, but I pay attention to what's due and I schedule my time accordingly. So, as I mentioned, some people it may take them if they have to read 2 or 3 chapters and brief 3 to 4 cases. It may take them 5 hours, 7 hours. It may take some people a day and a half because of work and family. So everybody's situation is different. Some people have little kids. Some people have parents that they have to take care of. Some people work 80 hours a week. Some people work part-time. So that question, it varies. It all depends on you, but I always take it back to what work is due and you don't want to be the person that's not prepared when it's time to ask a question. But more importantly, when you go to class, if you've already done the reading and the assignments, whatever you don't understand, it's the perfect time to ask questions. When you're in undergrad, some people go to class and they don't read what they should read, and then they just play catch up later. Law school is not like that. If you really want to get the full effect, you have to do the work before, and then that way in class you have a more engaged experience. And if you don't understand something, you can ask questions. And even if you still don't understand, then that's when you go to office hours after class or on the weekend, or you go into study groups with the TAs, and then it can start to make sense. Like last night in Civ Pro, we had, Dean McCormick can tell you, we probably had like 5, 6 rules. There's a lot. And I read everything before class, and I still was confused by certain things, but it's starting to sink in only because I did the work before. I know what questions I have. So basically is one of those that you have to get into it and just plan accordingly to do the work before class, and then you get a feel for how long it'll take you to do it. Everybody's different.
Lamar, thank you so much for your very thoughtful response, and thank you so much, Joe, for that terrific question. Dr. Teresa Ford, do you want to take the microphone?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'd just like to thank the panelists, especially Chelsea and Lamar. So I'm actually a newly divorced parent. So I'm transitioning from being married to, having kids also. So the conversation that you brought up over the panel, I really appreciate that. And I'm actually getting ready to take a director's position for Solar for All out of Florida. So I really, really want to do this program. I've been wanting to do a hybrid JD program, but someone told me a long time ago that was never gonna happen, and bam, COVID happened. So I think you're one of the law schools that, kept that around. So I appreciate that. But I wanted to ask in particularly, I'm looking at the scholarships and I see merit-based scholarships versus average scholarships, and I see for the online, it looks like the cap is 10,500. how can students position themselves for this, and what in particularly should we be, trying to strive for if we want a scholarship?
I can take that question. The scholarships, I think that you're quoting, that's for the website, and that's for our online, or actually it's maybe even our residential master's programs. That's not for the hybrid JD. We do substantial scholarships for the hybrid JD program that are merit-based, that are based on your GPA and your LSAT score. We also have something else called our mission-based scholarships that are available that offer a stipend. And the the two types of mission scholarships that you can write an essay to be considered for that. One is social justice and the other is environmental justice. And then third type of scholarships that are available are need-based scholarships. And then of course, financial aid is available to cover. And for hybrid JD students, financial aid will cover all the tuition that's not covered by a scholarship already. It'll also cover the cost of all of your books, and it'll cover some cost of living expenses if you'd like it to as well.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Teresa Ford and Shirley and Sarah. I think you also have your hand up.
Hi, yes. Good evening, everyone. My question is surrounding how we can set ourselves apart through the application process. I am also non-traditional student in age. I've been working about 18 years in a director level role. This program appeals to me because I actually work for an energy consulting firm. So I am also interested in the energy track. But if I'm being honest, as someone who has been out of school since 2011, when I finished my graduate degree, I've been a bit overwhelmed with the process. And I just want to make sure that when I am submitting my application, I'm doing the best that I can to set myself up for success. So any tips anybody has surrounding that would be greatly appreciated.
I can take that question. So you're asking how to set your application to be standout?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
So when we look at your application, we're looking, at your personal statement or your essays for how well you write and what it is that you want to do with your JD, kind of what your mission is. We're very interested in all that. We require 2 letters of recommendations, but we'll read up to 4. And I always advise people that if there's a part of your application that you don't love, like maybe you had a rough freshman year, when you were in college, or some, uncharacteristically low grades or whatever, better to add an addendum on that. And address that. And you can also add some additional letters of recommendations that can be helpful. I know that many of the hybrid students ask me the question, like, I've been out of school for so long, I can't get a professor letter of recommendation. But, you all can ask, people that you work with. We're looking for those people to attest to, your ability, your attention to detail, your analytical skills, your people skills, because we want to be able to select people for this program that are going to be successful in the program and successful in their careers after they graduate.
That's super helpful. Thank you. May I ask one more question?
Sure.
Timing. So I thought that I was somewhat ahead of the game, and I'm realizing perhaps I am not for fall 2025. I am actually taking the LSAT for a second time this Saturday, so good vibes, everybody. But I mean, how soon do you believe you will fill the class? And if, an application doesn't come to you until early mid-December, is that too late at present moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So early mid-December is still early in our enrollment year. We're capped at 100 students for this program. And my understanding is, and Dean McCormick, maybe you can add to this, that we're going to ask for that cap to be increased to 150. We never know when the ABA will let us know their decision on that. It might be 2 weeks before the end of the enrollment year. So it's kind of, we don't know what to tell you on that. But if we stay at the 100, I think as long as you're getting your application in, by April, or, the April LSAT at the latest, that you're going to be in good shape, for, potentially getting the spot in the class. And if those, we get those extra 50 spots in the class, that's a game changer. Then that'll open up more spots, and it might be opening them up later on in the enrollment year. So that could, help out for some people that have to take the LSAT later. The June LSAT is the last LSAT date that we'll accept for fall 2025 enrollment, assuming we still have room in the hybrid program.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. That is super helpful.
Sure.
Excellent. And if anyone wants to raise their hand, ask a question, feel free to continue to do so. I see a couple of questions in the chat area that may be for Dean McCormick and or myself. And Dean McCormick, feel free to weigh in. Benjamin Wilson asked, what percentage of Vermont law faculty have practiced law? I really appreciate that question because both Dean McCormick and I have practiced law at law firms in the Boston area. And now, if I may say so, I think Dean McCormick and I were in very different practice areas. So if you are, for example, at a law firm that's mid-sized or a relatively large law firm, generally the two largest practice areas are corporate transactional work and litigation. Dean McCormick was in litigation, and I was a corporate transactional attorney before I entered into the legal academy. I don't know the specific percentages, but I can share that anecdotally and from what I've seen among the faculty, it's quite a few. And I think it stems from the fact that Vermont Law Graduate School is a law school that is very welcoming of practitioners and isn't a law school that has a very strict, rigid requirement that one has to, go go through uh, clerkships and then immediately enter into the legal academy and then be a visiting professor and then assistant professor at a couple different law schools, which is oftentimes a more traditional path to becoming a law professor. But my sense is that it's relatively substantial. But Dean McCormick, do you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah.
Or?
I don't have the exact percentage either, but I'll say most of our faculty have practiced before they've worked here. And it's actually one of the things I'm most proud of. I usually include it in my list of three. When I went to law school, I didn't go to law school here. I went to Boston University. And I don't think I had a single professor that had ever practiced law or even taken the bar exam, which is weird, right? But that's sort of how law school works, or some law schools work. And so that is not how our law school works. So we do have a few kind of traditional academics, but for the most part, all of our professors have practiced in one way or another. So some of them have been public defenders, prosecutors, U.S. attorneys, private practice, NGOs, working for the government. So all sorts of experience. And I really invite you to peruse some of the bios on our website. You'll get a sense of the different things that our faculty have done.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dean McCormick. And I see another question that I'm glad to field, but I'll also ask Dean McCormick if you have any thoughts you want to add here. This is Vermont law military friendly, or does it have military student support groups? I would say Vermont law is extremely military friendly. I've worked with a number of different military students as well as veterans. There's the Veteran Law Students Association, and I think the Veteran Law Students Association has been very welcoming of online hybrid JD students. And I know that the Veteran Law Student Association, for example, has the mission of providing a support network for service members, veterans, dependents, families, and community members, a social experience that builds on the bonds forged during national service, and a voice that advocates for the unique needs of the military community. I'm reading from the the actual mission statement on the website there. But Dean McCormick, do you want to add anything about that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the question was asking about the certification of being military friendly, and we're actually in that process right now. We have submitted an application for an official military friendly certification. I don't have any updates about when we'll hear about that. The application was submitted, I don't know, maybe 8 weeks ago or so. But aside from that, I do consider us to be a military friendly institution, and our online hybrid JD program is especially attractive to veterans and their families. I think about 30% of our incoming class this year were either veterans or associated affiliated families of active duty or veterans. So it is a popular program. We are considering expanding our veterans law options in the future too. I can't promise that right now, but it is something that is part of our strategic plan for the development of the OHJD to have even a veterans law track and opportunities for more classes that specialize on veterans law.
Excellent. Thank you so much again, Dean McCormick. And so Shirley, do you want to add anything?
Sure. I just wanted to reach out with just a couple of the questions that are in the chat. And by the way, I put in my contact information for if you or any of the people that asked me or asked us questions in the chat that we didn't get to, feel free to make an appointment with me and I'd be happy to go over those questions at that time. We had a question in the chat, which was, what is our bar passage rate? I'm going to let Dean McCormick answer that, and also have her talk about what we do to ensure that our students will have great success with the bar.
Yes, so we haven't had any of our online hybrid JD students take the bar exam yet. So our first class, our third years now, so they'll be taking the bar in about a year. Well, a year from February. So we haven't had any experience with our online hybrid JD students. There are a few online hybrid JD programs that have had graduates. They haven't been accredited by the ABA for very long. But I am aware that the ones that have graduates, which I think maybe are 2 or 3 schools, have had bar passage rates very similar to their residential rates, which is encouraging news. For us, for our residential rate, for the class, you report bar passage about 2 years after the student graduates. So we just recently in February reported the class of 2020. I always screw this up. Is that right? No. 2022. So yeah, in February of 24, we reported on the class of 2022 and we reported a 75% bar passage rate. This February, we'll be reporting the class of 2023 and it'll be higher, about the same, but higher, maybe around 77, 78 will be what we're going to report for the class of 2023. We just had first-time bar passage rate for the class of 2024. So most of those, again, not the online students, but the residential students took the bar in July, and results are still coming in. Our biggest jurisdiction is DC, which I believe comes out on Saturday, but things are looking pretty good from my view on that. You can find our ABA required disclosures about bar passage on our website too, which gives you a full kind of description of the jurisdictions our students take the bar. Our students take the bar in about 33 different jurisdictions. Most of them are uniform bar exam jurisdictions, which means it's the same exam from state to state. You just sit for it in a particular state. Some states are different and they have their own bar exam. Big news, though, in bar exam world, I mean, if you're a bar exam follower, as I am, is that there's a new bar exam coming this summer. So no one's taken it before. It's coming in Vermont, not this summer, but the following summer, but other jurisdictions will have it this summer. And so all of you will be taking the next generation bar exam. The good news is that bar exam aims to require less memorization and more practical skills like research and issue spotting, which is, I think, great news for legal education. The bad news is we have limited information about exactly what that's going to look like, and even a harder sense of what the best type of preparation will be. I do think Vermont Law and Graduate School has been leaders in developing a curriculum for the next generation bar exam. You can probably find online some articles or some presentations I've done on it. We have revamped our 1L curriculum in order to prepare students for that exam based on the information that we have. And then I also told you about our partnership with Barbary, which is another way we try to help students prepare for the bar. Generally speaking, and if you have friends or family members that are attorneys, they'll tell you this. You graduate from law school and then you pay Barbary or Kaplan for a class to prepare you for the bar exam, which feels very painful. I get it. But that class is an important way for you to sort of cram everything you need to know for that exam. So as part of our partnership with Barbary, you get that class for free. I hate to say for free because you're paying us tuition, but you won't have to pay for that class after you graduate. It'll be part of your tuition, which I think will help. So you can take that class after you graduate, and then take the bar either in February or the following July. The bar's offered twice a year. And I think our professors are very focused on the bar too. And you can ask Chelsea, Richard, and Lamar about that. It's probably not a day goes by that I don't talk about the bar exam. And I style a lot of my assessments, both in class and on my midterms and finals, on bar exam type assessments. Something I'm very focused on, and I think you'll find the rest of our faculty are too.
And one last question before I just make a quick announcement. Chelsea, I was hoping maybe you could answer this. Someone asked, what are the costs for attending a residency? And you've attended your first residency in your 1L year.
I am not sure the total cost, but I do know that we got a discounted rate on the hotel. And so we didn't pay full price. They were able to negotiate that rate for us. And I flew out of Nashville to Burlington. I'm a single mom. My kids are with me 24/7. Aside from when we go to work and school, my son is 20 and my daughter is 13. So they are older, but I was very excited to have some time away and to meet new people and to go to my first law school residency. So it was definitely affordable. It wasn't something that was not affordable or attainable for me, but it was so much fun. We had the best time and it was just great to meet everyone. And Vermont did help as much as they could to help make it affordable and attainable for all of us, for sure.
I do recall that rate. It was a $200 a night flat rate that the school was able to negotiate, which is a substantial discount for what that hotel.
Yeah, and there was a lot of like the food expense as far as that goes too. Like there were snacks available. There was breakfast in the morning provided outside of our the rooms that we met in for class. There were snacks and drinks like throughout the day. And then I think 2 nights we dined with the law school, 1 night on our own. So that definitely helped as far as the price goes too, if you're looking at that cost offset too.
Ellen, did you want to add something on that?
I think the one thing I'll add is if you the experience to be able to come to Vermont and not only really kind of Lamar had mentioned the people. I think that's really a great aspect of not only meeting your classmates, but meeting people here in Vermont. It really kind of showcases our state. And it's a great way to have that experience in Burlington, Vermont, or if you come down to our campus in South Royalton, Vermont, which is about an hour and 20 minutes south of the Burlington area.
Just that my favorite
And
moment.
we also got to do office hours with Dean McCormick and Doug, and that was so amazing. And I think that's part of the community too. We went on a morning walk with Dean McCormick and Doug, and we talked about class. We just talked about, life and, what brought us to Vermont Law School. And we talked about civil procedure rules, and it just was really, really amazing. So
I'll just add that Doug is a dog.
Yes.
I was going to say that my favorite part about the residency, which is one of the most special moments, it always moves me to tears, is that there's a swearing-in ceremony on the first morning, and Justice Waples of the Vermont Supreme Court is the one that typically gives the welcome address and a swearing in, and we are able to record and/or live stream that too, so your families can participate in it as well. It's a special and moving ceremony. It's one that our residential students have too, so we love duplicating that for the online students, and it's always one of my favorite moments in the residency.
Well, I want to thank you all for gathering tonight for this event, and a special thank you to all of our panelists for helping to provide this information with you. I wanted to let you know that every other Wednesday, the admissions department hosts different events that may be of interest to you. On Wednesday, November 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to have an overview of the externship and law clinics that are available through our Vermont Law School programs. And then on December 4th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, there'll be an overview from our Academic Success Department, and they're going to go over how to prepare for law school, which may be of great interest to you as well. I put the link in the chat for where you can connect to register for those events. If you wanted to sit in on Dean McCormick's civil procedure class, you could just email me. My email address is also in the chat. And just let me know which Tuesday night that you'd like to attend the class, and I'll put you in there and send you the Microsoft Teams link to be able to log on. And if you have any questions about the hybrid program or want more information about the application process, feel free to set up a calendar appointment with me or send me an email. All that information is in the chat as well. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Good
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.